If you're in the process of trying to find a financial advisor, or maybe it's just not even on your radar and you don't think you need one, today's episode is for you. We're going to talk about how to find a financial advisor that's a good fit for you. But before we even go there, I think one piece that is often overlooked is the financial advisor's story. We're going to talk about some green flags and red flags to avoid. But before even that, I think it's important that just like your advisor needs to get to know you, that you get to know them. And so I thought today I might spend just a couple of minutes doing something that's really uncomfortable for me, and that's talking about myself. I love to teach you guys about money. I love to tell you stories about my kids, but it is a little difficult for me to take the time to tell my story. So that's what we're going to do today. When I joined the Jim Wealth team, I was in the midst of a divorce. I had a job that I originally didn't even plan on doing, which was bookkeeping, fell into it after college, and I had done it for about 10 years. Jim Wealth needed a bookkeeper, and I needed a career instead of a job because I had two little ones, actually three, because my niece was living with me at that time as well. And so I reached out to someone that I'd known from my past, and they connected me with Jim Wealth. And when I joined this team, I immediately knew this was a fantastic group of people, but I had no clue what they do. When I had thought about financial advisors, and you may have this view too, I thought about the movies you see about like the stock exchange and stockbrokers and all of that. And I thought the average Joe does not need that in their lives, or at least certainly I didn't need that in my life. So it wasn't something that was even on my radar for me to ever really need. Maybe the ultra wealthy use them, who knows? But either way, what I saw in that office didn't fit with what I expected financial advisors to be. They were just fantastic people who loved on the people who came in that door and genuinely fought for what was best for them. And I was very interested in understanding more about what they do. So one day I'm in John's office and I'm delivering some reports, as bookkeepers often do, and he was working on a plan for somebody. And I remember I just kind of had this urge to really get to know what they do because it was this mystery to me. And I asked him if he would mind showing me what he was working on. And he, being the educator at heart that he is, took about an hour and a half to walk me through every step of this person's plan, explain their circumstances and what they were working on for this couple. And I remember going, man, this is life-changing. This is not at all what I expected. It was coaching. It was helping them cover gaps that they probably didn't even realize they had. It was creating a true plan, not just a bunch of products to buy. And something just lit a fire inside of me. So that day, I guess John could tell, I was like, man, this stuff is crazy. He said, would you like to learn more? And something you'll know about me if you ever meet me is I love learning new things. And in that moment, I thought it doesn't really benefit you to teach your bookkeeper about financial advising. But yeah, actually, why not? I'd love to know more about what you guys do. And he paid for me to do what's called paraplanner training. So think of it like a physician's assistant. There's a certain level of things that they are trained to do, but they're not the one writing the script necessarily, or at least signing the script. And with that training, I shifted my role a little bit to include helping John with his clients and being able to help him create plans and all of that. And then at some point, I realized that being licensed in that role would help me be more effective in helping his clients. Because as one of the owners of the company, you can imagine he was busy. So I went through the training process to do that. Mind you, at this point, I still wasn't a financial advisor on my own and had really no desire to. I loved working with John. I loved my team. And then a few years later, I got married. And I was sharing a particular client story, of course, not sharing names, but just how much I enjoyed interacting with them. And my husband directly says, why aren't you an advisor? You love interacting with clients. You love helping people. You love educating people. You're doing the job. Why not be the job? And that's when I made the transition. And I'm very grateful for the heart of education that we have here at Jim Wealth, that John was even willing and Janet was willing to pay for all of these trainings for someone who at the time didn't even want to be an advisor. But I feel like one thing that I wish more people knew about financial advisors in general is their story, because for me, I think the fact that I am the average Joe, I am that person who got started too late. I am that person who has a lot on their plate. As you probably know, if you've paid attention to the show, I've got a couple of kids. But I think if you can understand the heart of the person who's helping you, it can help a lot in the relationship itself. And one of the things you need to know about your advisor's story is what they have. Not everyone that calls themselves an advisor has the same training. We've talked about different understandings of things in the past, and how my mom says normal's just a setting on the dryer, that normal can be different. Well, calling yourself a planner, an advisor, doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. When we talk about a financial advisor, we want someone who is fully licensed, because our licensing determines what tools we can use. So in the case of our team, for instance, we require everyone to get what's called fully licensed, which means if you want to Google it, they're going to have a Series 7, and they're going to either have the 66 like I do, or there's a combo of tests, the 63 and 65, that they can take that equals the same as the 66 for licensing. And so that's like the bare minimum, okay? To be on our team, that's what we require everyone to do. But then also, have they done any additional training? One of the trainings I've done is called the Retirement Income Certified Professional Training. It's specific to retirement strategies because that's the bulk of what we do. But when you're meeting with someone, what other training have they done? Just like doctors and lawyers can specialize, financial advisors can too. And so there may be a specialization that is pertinent to you. So that might be something to look for. Are they investment advisors? Are they financial planners? Are they wealth managers? What are the key services that they provide? Are they primarily asset managers? Do they primarily focus on retirement planning or maybe tax strategies, if that's something that's important to you? There's different things that we can really focus in on that might be really important to your specific journey. So when you're interviewing them or you're looking at someone, that's something to look at. And I failed to mention before, if you're wanting to check someone's licensing, you can go to brokercheck.com and look their name up. And if they're not on there, then they're not securities licensed. And that may be something that's important to you. For me, I feel like it does make a difference when someone's helping you with your financial goals. But brokercheck.com is a great place to go. And it can tell you if they've had customer complaints, which are called disclosures, or if they've ever gotten in trouble. Those are some really important ways to vet the person you're meeting with. And then pay attention to their compensation models. There's a lot of different ways out there. Nobody works for free, and I'm not afraid to charge what I feel like is a fair fee for what I do. I think the value absolutely outweighs the cost for my clients, or at least I hope they believe that too. But there are a few different ways. There's, fee only. There's some people that say you pay an annual fee for my services and you don't pay any fee on the products. There are some people that have commission-based products where when they sell your product, they're going to get paid out of the amount that you put into that product. And then there are some that are fee-based where there's a percentage that comes out of that asset for asset management. My view is that none of those are innately wrong. It's all about what they're providing and the value you're receiving for it. Now, do I feel like there's some fees that are too high? Yes. I also feel like there's some people whose fees are too low. And I find that in most cases, you kind of get what you pay for. One of the big things that I've noticed is a lot of people using AI-based things online, which it's okay, in some circumstances. I'm not going to say it's bad. There are some circumstances, though, where you need coaching or you need some additional help. You might be chasing a goal that's not the right goal, or maybe it's not going to get you where you want to go. So it's important that you really pay attention to the bigger picture, in my opinion. Let's talk about some green flags to look for, some things that should say, okay, this person might be someone to pay attention to. I mentioned this earlier about the RICP, which is the training I have. There's also a couple other designations out there called, there's the CFP, Certified Financial Professional, and there's a CFA. There are a bunch of different designations that people can go through, different trainings they can do to specialize in, whether it's tax planning, things like that. And having those credentials can kind of give you a clue to that person's motivation within their field to a degree. But don't let that be the only thing that you look at, because there are some people who are really great at taking classes and passing them, but maybe they're not a great fit for you. Another one is, are they acting as a fiduciary? And this is one that can be a little misleading, in my opinion. Even in my role as a financial advisor, there are certain accounts that by law, I'm not required to act as a fiduciary. And this is one of those things I think is a buzzword, being a fiduciary. There's not a legal obligation for me to act as a fiduciary on all of my accounts. We at GenWealth choose to behave as if we are a fiduciary regardless. And we always have, even before all these crazy, catchphrases and fancy words came out. We chose to act in a way that puts our client's best interest above our own. And our compensation structure is set up to reward that. All of our advisors have a living salary. So if something happens and you choose not to work with me or someone else on our team, we're not starving. And I think that really is a benefit to us. So asking about those sorts of things is important. Are they transparent about the fees? Are they transparent about how they get paid? Because when you're building trust, I feel like transparency is really, really important. And I know, again, that might be one of those buzzwords, but do you know upfront if you're paying for something, what you're paying for, how much it's going to cost you, and what the long-term expenses are? Because sometimes we focus on that moment when we start the investment, but we're maybe not looking down the road. And there could be other things coming that you're not prepared for. So we want to make sure you're educated. And then also their years of experience, especially navigating through different market cycles. One beautiful thing I have at my disposal here at GenWealth is we have advisors like John and Janet, our owners, who have been here for a long time. I've not been an advisor for long, I think 7 years, 8 years, somewhere in that range. So I haven't been through 2008. I got to experience what it was like with COVID and 2022, but I was not here for the big one, that a lot of people do remember. But I can lean into John and Janet's experience and learn from it when I have something going on with a client that maybe feels similar to them. And I have that kind of deep bench to pull from. So if the advisor doesn't have that, do they have a deep bench they can reach out to? Do they have a team environment where they can get that information from others? And then really, do they provide you a written plan? Are you getting something that you can go back to when times are tough or the market's acting crazy and reference back to why? Because your why is really important when it comes to investing because it's going to keep you on track. Let's talk about some things to avoid. We don't want to be sold. None of us do. None of us want to have somebody pushing us. So if you feel like you're getting some pushy sales tactics, or if they're guaranteeing returns, that's a red flag because there's a lot in our industry that is just not guaranteed. Do they have a lack of clarity around fees and cost, how they're compensated? Are they not fully licensed where they even have a fiduciary standard? Do they have a limited investment philosophy where maybe there's only a handful of products they can use? Or are they unable to explain concepts? Because if someone really understands something, they should be able to explain it to you in a way that you can understand it too. So if you catch yourself going, I have no idea what this person just said to me, that should be a red flag, especially if they won't circle back and re-explain it in a way that makes sense to you. So what are some questions you can ask? Again, ask them how they're compensated. Nobody should be offended by that. What is their investment philosophy or strategy? How do they measure investment performance? How do they report that performance? And how often are you going to meet to communicate? What experiences do they have with clients specifically like you? And what makes them unique compared to others? Those are all questions that anybody should be able to answer. Kind of treat it like a job interview. I know it sounds maybe a little crass to some to say that, but it doesn't bother me at all when people ask me these types of questions. And check their background, check their references if they have some. Observe how engaged they are when you ask a good question, or even when you ask a bad question. Do they make you feel silly for it, or do they answer the question and validate you? And then trust your gut. Let's be real. There's people you meet that you go, yeah, this isn't going to work. Trust your gut. Don't force it. And if you want to work effectively with them once you've decided who you want to work with, here are some tips for that as well. Set some clear expectations up front. As an advisor, it helps me a ton to understand what my client is expecting, because sometimes clients need a little more attention and sometimes they'd rather you just leave them alone and let them execute what you've already given. So don't rush or don't assume that the advisor knows. Help them out and give them the information they need. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If something's unclear or if you don't get the why behind it, you have every right to ask questions about that and make sure that it's clear before you commit. Stay involved. Check in. Read your reports and your statements that you get. Make sure there's no errors. We're human. It can happen. And then give them updated information. And this one, I think, is the most important of all of them. I cannot help you if I don't know what's going on with you. If you move jobs, if you have a life change, I need to know. If you change your address, those are all times when it's important to reach out to your advisor and talk. And we have a whole episode on that called We Need to Talk if you want to go hunt it down in the YouTube and archives somewhere. But as we're finishing this up, I want to make sure you know that having the right financial advisor in your corner can absolutely change your life. And I believe it because I've seen it. It can have a huge difference on your financial journey as you're navigating that. And if you would like to get a good foundation, this podcast is a great start for that. But you can also download the 6 Keys to Unlocking Financial Independence for free. You can text the word KEYS to 501-381-5228. or visit getreadyforthefuture.com/keys. That's all I've got for today, guys. I hope that's helped you out as you're trying to figure out who's going to work with you going forward. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe and follow so you get the notifications next time.
Thanks for listening to Talking Sense. And if you like what you hear, make sure and subscribe to the podcast to get all the newest episodes. The Jim Wealth team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or by calling our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. And while we like to have fun here, we're also financial advisors, and that means disclosures. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and Jim Wealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.